I think the biggest difficulty in change is making a different choice. Now think about the New Year's resolutions. Everybody's very clear about what their intention is, what they want, whatever that is. But if you keep making the same choices, you're going to keep doing the same things, you're going to keep creating the same experiences, you're going to keep feeling the same emotions. And your biology and your neurocircuitry and your chemistry and your hormones and even your gene expression is going to stay the same because you're the same. But keep thinking the same way, keep acting the same way, keep feeling the same way, and do it over and over again. Those circuits in the brain ultimately become hardwired, and the emotions that are a response to someone or something, even your own thoughts, get conditioned subconsciously as a program into the body. So 95% of who we are by the middle of our life is an unconscious set of thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that are automatically programmed into our biology. So the first step to change is not thinking positively. You got to become conscious of those unconscious thoughts when you decide to make a different choice and it doesn't feel familiar. The thought that says, start tomorrow, it's too hard, just do it anyway, go ahead and make that choice, do the same thing. You're not good enough, you'll never change, you're too much like your parents, I failed last time. You have to be able to become so conscious of those unconscious thoughts that you would never go unconscious to that thought ever again, and that's change.
I want to bring alongside of what Joe said here was something that he didn't necessarily hone directly on, is that, like, for instance, when something comes up, our ingrained way of processing that situation would be, it's not me, it's them. Look at the way that he responded to me here in this particular situation, or she did this in that particular situation, or they came and said this in this particular situation, without recognizing that it may actually be your interpretation of that that's the problem. It's because often your perception of situations need realignment so that you may be able to really see what's going on, or really see the areas that are potentially holding you back because of the way that you're interpreting that particular situation. And that's kind of what I want to get across here, is that, like, it's less of a thought, it's more of, how am I perceiving situations that present themselves in front of me? And then as a result of that, what am I doing after that?
Think about the emotions that are associated with stress. It's anger, it's hatred, violence, it's hostility, it's judgment, it's competition, it's control, it's envy, it's jealousy, it's insecurity, it's fear, it's anxiety, it's vigilance, it's hopelessness, it's powerlessness, it's guilt, it's shame, and psychology calls all of those emotional states normal human states of consciousness. Those are altered states of consciousness. So if you're feeling any one of those emotional states, more than likely you're having a stress response. The problem is we get so conditioned into it that we don't know how to feel any other way. So I think we describe change in this work as being greater than your body. We want being greater than the body that's been conditioned emotionally into the past, and being greater than the body when it's programmed into a predictable future.
Anytime you experience any of those subsets of states, immediately start to audit.
Major key.
Because that can be your barometer for something's off here. Where is it coming from? Often, if we're honest with ourselves, it's coming from ourselves in some capacity. And that's where we then have the opportunity to deep dive and be able to figure out, okay, if that's the case, what if I do something different in this situation than what the old self, the familiar self, as Joe says it, wants to do, and you actually tangibly make that physical change that he touched on is the difficult part of it, because often, like, it's very easy to take a situation, what someone says or what have you, and justify why you did something that aligns with your old self. But if you can make the recognition the practice, like, how do I continue to recognize these situations as they come before I make that snap judgment or that snap decision? First, try to find the trigger that you can align with. Okay, there may be something here. And I believe one of those big triggers that can align to figure that out is what Joe touched on with regards to those states in that particular clip. What's the signal, right? The signal that allows me to be able to figure that out kind of quickly. And I believe it's assessing the state of how you feel whenever something comes up, whenever something's said, and that could be the trigger, like, boom, okay, automatically there may be something here I need to look at, reassess, what have you, but it's an alert. Whatever it is, that's an alert, and take those alerts very serious.
So the hard part about change is when you decide to make a different choice, get ready, it's going to feel uncomfortable. There's going to be uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment. It's going to feel unfamiliar. So if the body has been conditioned to be the mind, then the servant is the master. So the body starts sending information back to the brain to think a certain thought so that you make the same choice, that you do the same thing, you create the same experience.
Comfortableness is familiar.
Get back to the same feeling of suffering. Oh, that feels so much better than the uncertainty of the unknown. Going from the old self to the new self and crossing that river literally is a neurological, it's a biological, it's a chemical, it's a hormonal, it's a genetic death of the old self. That's the phoenix lighting itself on fire. And most people would rather cling to that familiar place than take a chance and possibility. That void, that vacuum actually is the perfect place to create it. And we discovered this, that the brain changes the most when you get to that point where you think you can't go any further and you want to quit. If you go past that point, that is the unknown. Now, the unknown has always been wired in our biology, that the uncertainty of the unknown is always a scary place. Is that a tiger in the bushes, or is that just a shadow? So the unknown becomes a very scary place when we're living in survival. So most people never take that chance and possibility.
When Joe talks about that the unknown is where it's at, it's look at it from the perspective of, if you're not seeing what it is that you currently want in your current frame, and you've probably been running that frame for some time, there's likely a different frame that you need to take on, different actions, thoughts, beliefs, whatever it may be, to allow for the thing that hasn't showed up in your old frame to come in. If these sets of actions, beliefs, thoughts have not brought you what it is that you want, you need to enter in a new set of thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, what have you, into the equation to allow for something else to occur. It's less resistant in regards to change, because it's like, me staying the same way is just gonna get me the same thing. Let me change because it hasn't gotten me what I want. For me though, it was, okay, Ian, what is it about you that needs to change? And for me, it was just a constant, and it still continues to be, a constant discovery of what are my actions, thoughts, beliefs, perceptions that are keeping me back from becoming my best self, and continuing to uncover those as I go on throughout my life. A big one for me, and I think I've touched on this prior to, was the manufacturing of Brushy. I was very forefront of this. It took me a while to become comfortable with relinquishing the concept in general, for fear of getting duplicated and getting copied. For me, one of the biggest things with regards to stepping into the unknown, that was a big step into the unknown for me, where, looking at this from a fear perspective is not allow the concept itself, me as an entrepreneur, to take the steps necessary to bring it to light. I need to let go of that desire to have and feel that control over the situation as much as I'd like, and have it look like what I think it should look like with regards to the engagement, and let me make the best decision that I can at this point in time with the resource that I have at this point in time to put my foot forward. And it was scary for me, being 100, because it was family has invested, I've invested all this time into this, others as well. And you want to ensure that you're making the right decision. And throughout that process, especially while it was being built, that was, years. So here I am throughout that years period, unsure of, did I make the right decision and did I not? But for me, after that, the product was fully ready. We were ready to ship. Everything was good to go. It was the first time that I had experienced something to where I was like, yo, your mind was lying to you for a minute about actually what this whole thing is. Because I stepped into a spot that was uncomfortable for me, that was filled with previous thoughts that kept me comfortable because I was fearful, into one where I was like, let me see what this brings, and it brought me what I wanted. And I don't want you to sit here and believe me. All I want you to do is really implement it and try it in your life. Really try it. And again, it may be something that's uncomfortable for you because you're not allowing it. It can't be something where you're thinking physically, oh yeah, I'm gonna allow this, I'm gonna allow this, I'm gonna allow this, but you're doing the same action. Really take action out of, all right, I'm gonna try something different here and allow and see what happens here. Do something that creates non-resistance to where I typically would resist, and trust that something beyond me wants me to have what it is, exactly what I want. And I don't know in every single situation what it's gonna look like to get there, and just see what happens. Don't trust me, don't just believe me, see what happens. And then drop it in the comments afterwards, please. These are the top segments from the Joe and Chris interview that I wanted to break down and do a deeper element on what my thoughts were about it and based on what they said. Anything that you guys have with regards to feedback that you love, that you didn't like, that you want to hear more of, please let me know. Again, this is an area where I want us all to be able to thrive from. I want us all to be able to experience the beautiful things that life has for us. And I found a lot of these elements that Joe speaks on, the way that he articulates it, the science he puts behind it is just hitting. And I want to be able to advocate for, not just the practice, but bring more light to the practice wherever I can. So I appreciate y'all as always. Much love, and